Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Now, before we get into it today, I need to quickly apologise for a little audio snafu on my end for the first 20 minutes. It's probably best just to say, a little of a mic malfunction. However, I can assure you, Rory sounds absolutely fantastic, so you're in for a treat regardless. What does it take to foster a culture of growth in schools? Today's guest, Rory Courlander, is leading the way as a unicorn in education, transforming leadership, teaching, and learning through coaching and purpose-driven leadership. Rory is an assistant high school principal at GEMS Dubai American Academy, an ICF-Certified coach, teaching and learning coach, IB psychology teacher, and the founder of Corelander Coaching. Rory's work is about empowering leaders, supporting teachers, and unlocking student potential. So Rory, welcome to the International Classroom Podcast. I always like this. Whereabouts in the world do we find you today?
I'm in Dubai, Alex. I've been in Dubai this is my 8th year. And I've come from Dublin originally, but worked in Thailand before this in a North Anglia school for 2 years. And then North Wales, where I met my wife and have my kids.
Amazing. Just out of curiosity, is she a travelling partner or is she also a teacher?
Yeah, she's also a high school counsellor and works in a school in Dubai as well. So we met with university in psychology. So she's the counselling route. I went the teaching route.
There's a lot of just reading this back now. There's a lot of skills, certifications, things that you've achieved there. A lot of hats to wear. And obviously, then as assistant principal, we got coach, entrepreneur. I can get along with that. How do you balance it all? I get asked this question a lot. How do you balance it all? What drives your passion for education and coaching?
Yeah, it's. I think balance is easy when you're just doing everything you really just enjoy. Like, so I have consistent amount of energy. Like my poor mum, like she's like, I'd have to be the only one walking you in the snow. So I have a lot of energy, and physical activity is important to me. But with that comes a lot of ideas. So I'm always have ideas, and I want to try new projects. And I've always got many books on the go on projects, but I really do think that in the last, I'd say 3 years, everything that I've been working on is all coming together. So like that, I was always a teacher and then getting into a leadership role this year, coaching, like psychology was probably my first ever love. Like I remember coming across it at 21 for the first time. We don't do it in school in Ireland. And I was like, wow. And when I found coaching about 5 years ago, it was the same. So when they're all combined together, if you think about like my working day, it's like I'm actually doing everything I love. So the balance, it kind of comes in easy because it's kind of giving me energy more of the time than taking it. So you just keep going. It's like your strengths. If you live in your strengths, you'll be more willing to go further.
Yeah, I always I remember because I did friends with coaches and did it a while ago myself, because I think a lot of more teachers are now doing it because they find it a valuable skill to have, and a lot more people talk about it when we talk like say professional development or performance management. And I remember getting directed to the Gallup strengths, and the guy who was training us at the time, funnily enough, who is an ex-teacher, was like, think of it of how do you make your pointy parts pointier, like living in your strengths, as you say, how do you make those strengths stronger? And we're going to dive into that in a little bit later on. But I'm curious because you kind of alluded to it to some extent. But education, like how did you decide to pursue this career in education, and then really just think, you know what, I want to go into educational leadership?
Well, it was quite interesting because if I reflect back, I would say I was probably always going to be a PE teacher. Like I think if I was to reflect back on all my love for football and the kind of feedback I got in school, but I was mine is a very long journey, like not having much proper grades in school because all I wanted to do was play football. And then finally going to study, I found psychology at 21 when I had a year off. I did a night course and I just went, what's psychology? And I did it. And I remember just going, oh my God, like how come no one's told me about this? I was just like, I need to know more about this. And that's when at 21, so like I was classed as a mature student in the UK. I don't know how, but I went and I studied sports science with psychology, and then I dropped sports science and went into psychology. I didn't know, I just knew I had to know psychology. Fast forward to the third year of my university. I meet my wife 6 months later. She's pregnant. I have a child at 24, straight out of university, like kind of going, what do I do now? I'm in a foreign country, so to speak, because North Wales is all Welsh speaking, just to let you know. So my Welsh is pretty decent now. But it was only, so that was 24. It was like 3 years later where I got the opportunity to apply for a teaching psychology position, A-level and GCSE, for maternity cover, because you didn't need to have your teacher qualification. But I just remember that moment of my first day teaching. I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is exactly, and then that's when the journey started of, right, I got to be one of the best psychology teachers I can be. Like, that is it. And that means I got to be curious. I got to get feedback. I have to have people in my lessons. I have to, like you said, like all the hats, I got to prove to myself that I'm competent in certain areas. So that means now I can have influence. So kind of within that, and learning, I think, because as I said, in school, you kind of get pigeoned into you're the sports kind of kid. So I feel like I had a bit of a chip in my shoulder to prove to myself that, no, I'm smart. Like I can do this. And I suppose be honest as well, like at 22, I got diagnosed with dyslexia in university. So that kind of came in. I was like, oh, Jesus, I didn't realize that, you know. So within that, starting to understand that I actually have unique kind of that lateral thinking and the high level communication skills, which I had to develop because of obviously the recall element or writing and stuff. So I had to be very creative in my lessons, which actually led to high quality learning, because I wasn't just teaching one way, I was teaching multifaceted, which means I got all the students engaged in many different strategies. And I didn't realize that was called differentiation. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of natural. So, and then just like one of my, you were talking about strengths is curious, love of learning. Like that's just everything. And to progress through psychology and teaching and leadership and then my coaching qualifications, that is all a deep mission to learn about myself. That's always it's been. Just a consistent psychology, coaching, and those two things together, I have a real good understanding of who I am, which means I've a lot of skills and kind of reflective processes to be patient and ask really good probing questions as a coach to help others kind of unpack that potential, if that makes sense.
It does. Very well articulated and put together. And before we dive into the leadership part of it, just focusing then on what you're talking about from psychology and obviously moving around the world to teach, and now with IB psychology, like how do you find that's influenced sort of your leadership and then your approach to coaching?
I think it's still like a huge part of me. Like you progress with the psychology, so the positive psychology element in particular, that's like always the thing, that humanistic, that growth and potential. And it leaned in to this actual reflective question about my leadership. So a real good understanding of psychology is asking those big open-ended questions about human behavior and cognitive processes. So you get a real good understanding of these topics, which means you have high quality communication and relational skills. And from my experience in leadership, that's kind of the key. You know, I mean, if you're going to influence others, you have to be able to understand them and listen and know when to ask a question or know when to push a little bit, know when to challenge them. And it all kind of comes into that, I got it last week, 2 weeks ago with my coach actually. I was 90 days in the leadership role, and I was doing leadership before, but not like this. And I was like, if someone asked me who am I as a leader, I don't know if I'd answer it. But now I've got it. So it all transpired. So it's this kind of authenticity was number one that came up. Others focused, which is a key coaching element. Partnership, a key coaching approach. High expectations. And I think that originates from, I'd say, I've always been a captain of every football team when I played, all the way up. And those key areas were all based on understanding of human behavior, cognitive processes, and myself. So the application of psychology is key, because it's theoretical. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing in a classroom, is actually you get the opportunity to share theories, but teach the students how to apply it to improve their lives. And then it's like a medium to kind of connecting with students, really. That's what we do, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that the constant idea of building relationships, rapport, all those different types of things, I think is paramount, and it really is a priority in any successful educator's classroom. But from there, obviously, kind of getting this picture then, and it's like teacher first, I was a coach second, and then I've found myself in leadership really almost as a result of having developed these qualities in myself. I'm going to use the word educator rather than just a teacher. But obviously within that, how do you start to integrate the concept of coaching? Because we've got it down here as like a teaching and learning coach. How are you finding then that coaching is integrated into your role as an assistant principal?
I think that was one of the key reasons I really wanted to apply for the role last year. Is to jump in, the teaching and learning coach is my third year of that in the role. So I was a psychology teacher and a teaching and learning coach K-12. So what that meant is I worked one-to-one with all our teachers, kind of starting off. I used my relationships, kind of very instructional coaching based. And then as I started to do my coach training and my accreditation, I started to see the need going, actually, if we really want a coach approach here, I got to start coaching all the leaders, because we need a top-down ripple effect. So I did that for a year. I coached all assistant principals and 2 principals in the school, and I was just the clarity and focus they all got in that 20 minutes to 30 minutes of time bi-weekly we did. It was consistently, and the ripple effect on their team and their interactions with the students and parents and team was so positive that it led me then to go, right, I need to start training all our senior leaders in coaching. So I did my qualification to be a licensed coach and facilitator, and I run that 2-day course in the school. We've got 37 of our leaders have done that. We're going up to about 60 by this year. So the reason I tell this story is that I was kind of coaching leaders and kind of facilitating leaders how to have a coach approach. And then I was like, but I'm not really in a position of leadership, even though I was kind of coaching like in the middle. I was like, the teachers were here, the leaders were here, and I was supporting everyone in the middle. And the key one now, which I see now, is that in my direct meetings with the HODs, what I love to call my corridor coaching, and this is the key for schools, this is the beautiful thing, is having that awareness of your interactions with my peers, of when do I adopt a coach approach or when do I need to be a mentor. And that's where actually a lot of the leadership influence happens. It's that 5 minutes in the corridor, you're on your duty at break, you're hanging around the kids, and even interacting with the students and just shifting to asking more. And what I'm noticing is that when I'm having these bi-weekly coaching conversations with pretty majority of all the HODs in the secondary part, in the high school, and then I see when they leave with just a greater sense of who they are, what they want to achieve, and then you know that when they leave, they're going into their classroom with clarity and focus of what they want to influence in the learning, benefit student learning, and then with their team. So they're more centered. So, and I think that's the key. And it's because I'm experiencing it. I know, because I'm experiencing, I'm feeling the effects and I'm observing the benefits. Now I can actually kind of say, and I can document it, quantitative and qualitative, which I do every year. I can actually, taking a leadership approach in coaching, taking a coach approach in leadership and education does have a positive influence on your staff, because that can be seen in, the student learning outcomes, the relationships they actually have with their peers and with their students, and you can see the culture happening within a school.
Yeah, and I think obviously there's a few things you've mentioned there, but obviously one of the key things being able to live and breathe it. More often than not, we have these kind of conversations about consultants and what they come into school, and they deliver such fantastic ideas, but they don't always get to see it, then how it develops and how it plays out on a day-to-day basis. So there's a massive benefit there, obviously, for you and the school having that there. But I also like the fact that you talked about the conversations that happen in the corridor, and I think we kind of see those and the impact of those, and you can correct me for this one, but being either they can be transactional or they can be transformative, in terms of then having those 5 minutes of just being able to have those in a professional capacity, in a day in, day out, period by period at a time. The impact of that is probably exponential if you could look at it being there obviously all the time. But moving forward then, obviously you mentioned obviously the coaching, the teaching and learning coach, been doing that for a period of time, and from that I'm going to assume then that Corelander Coaching, something had to have clicked in that to go, hang on a minute, I need to probably set this up properly. So what motivated you to start that journey? And just tell us some of the core objectives then of your coaching work.
Yeah, I think it's a long journey for me, is that there's a lot of coaches out there, right? So I went down the International Coaching Federation route, where you get your certain amount of hours, 100 hours, you do your mentor coaching, you do like an exam. I haven't taken an exam since I was in, university. So, and then it's so funny how it triggers all that kind of childlike worries that you used to have. And it was really good. I was like, come on, I'm an effective teacher. I teach students how to revise all the time. So I just did it. Flashcards and mind maps. I did it. But when I got there, I was reading Ikigai at the moment as well. And I don't know if you're familiar with that concept. Yeah. And it was kind of going, those 4 key components. What do I love? What do I think my immediate community needs? And then as seriously as, what could I get paid for as well? Could this be monetized? And that was the curiosity of, it's like, if I set up a business, could I broaden this to many different people? And also, for the financial investment I've made, could I recoup some of that back? And it's quite interesting now that, because I've got a full-time job and obviously my family, I have a handful of clients, but in different countries, and not all in education. I got one who's a CEO of an IT company, got another one who's like an engineer. And the beautiful thing is, coaching at its purest form is person-centered. So I don't need to be an expert. I just need to be able to demonstrate highly effective coaching skills. So I just needed to know. I get a bit kind of, what's the word? Very, very focused to prove to myself that I can do something. That was all. I was like, can I set up a business? Can I create a logo? I was like, I don't even know how to do that. Can I create flyers, and how do I actually do? I had to call my friend who's set up his own business. I've got my first payment. I don't know how to give an invoice. You know what I mean? I was like, what do you do for an invoice? Yeah. But I needed to if you told me a few years ago, I was like, no way would you have invoices and be able to run this off and market and a little bit of marketing. So it was kind of that piece. It was like, I needed to prove to myself that I could. And then once I did set it all up, I went, this actually aligns with who I really am at the moment. Is this coach-like, we call it a coaching mindset. And that's really what I'm trying to embody as much as I can. And then I love that, because my colleagues are, sorry, that wasn't very coach-like of me. And I go, Rory, it's okay. You don't have to be a coach all the time. So I'm trying to navigate that as well, of professionally, people see me as the coach, and I know if they're asking for a coach-like conversation, but by how they approach me and what sort of questions they ask, it's interesting. You have to know the nuances and the relationship, so I can put the hat on, or I can just be Rory, where I'll just make jokes and have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can imagine this. It's that identity and the challenge of what hat am I wearing at what time, and what's the conversation they want me there. But take us through then sort of one of the key philosophies of your coaching approach, and obviously you discussed and saw this about this concept of reflective inquiry, which I'm interested in, because we hear a lot about teachers being reflective, we hear a lot about metacognition, but I've not come across this reflective inquiry before. Can you just talk us through what this is and kind of the approach that you would use then when coaching someone? Yeah,
I think the reason why I believe and I wanted to bring coaching into education in particular, and particularly in my school, I was surrounded by outstanding educators. I was like, there's not that need for mentorship. The IT sort of stuff, when they come in, and the new systems, and I was like, I can see that, but I was going, what they need is a time space for reflection. And then as I start reading, there's a great book called You Coach the Person, Not the Problem. And there's that's where the reflective inquiry comes in, and it's it allows individuals the time to really investigate their thoughts and emotions on a deeper level. And that's really what I'm doing. And then when you do that, and you give the space with good listening and good open-ended questioning, you'll find that they start to get clarity about what's really important for them now. When they have that clarity, shifts of perspective start to happen. And then the beautiful thing about coaching, it's always to action. So like, where are you now? Where do you want to go? And there's two things in coaching. People come to you for the what and the how. I want to achieve this, and how am I going to achieve it? But if you're like a real coach, you're looking at the who. How do I how do I support the development of this individual so that they grow, and then that sort of what is not needed anymore. So an example of that is one of my clients, and we actually just reflected on this about 6 weeks ago. Vulnerability, in his 50s, male leader. Well, it was a hard topic. So we shifted to sharing. So just sharing his ideas, sharing his thoughts with his leadership team to get more input so he can make a more informed decision. And it was always a topic. Every time he brought it up, it was like he was stuck. And you can see how he's stuck because he'd do certain things where he'd scratch his head and you're like, oh, it looks like you're stuck because people have behaviors there and you can notice it. And then what I noticed is that coaching the who is that, 6 months later, he was like, yeah, I had this really challenging decision to make and I didn't know what to do. And so I just brought it and I shared it with my team. And then I got some great ideas that I never did. And I just made a much more informed decision. I just had to pause and go, hey, can we just take a moment to reflect where you were and where you're now and how easy that was for you compared to 6 months earlier where it would have taken you 4 weeks to even get an awareness that you were struggling to share and demonstrate that little bit of vulnerability as a leader of, not that I don't know what to do, but actually I could really do with your support here. So it will benefit the organization. And then if you look in teachers in particular, and I think you had something there, is it also, reflection opens up emotions. And I'll be honest, the amount of tears I experience on a weekly basis with colleagues, because you work in education, and particularly in Dubai, and I think it's shifting a bit in the world, is like the intensity is moving up higher. So out of 10, you're working with colleagues, emotional labor, 8, 9, And what I'm noticing, even in a corridor coaching, if I give people 5 minutes, they go from an 8, 9 down to a 5 or 6. And you can just see and then in the reflective process, they're really understanding their emotions associated with certain tasks and then realizing that's not important. That's not actually going to add influence or support the learning I want from my students. And then the best quote I had is, I come to you with like all these tabs open. Have you ever seen an educator's laptop? It's shocking. Like, it's like, and she was our innovation activator. So she's like, I come to you with all my tabs open and then I leave with 2. And I think that is the key element in a very busy world, in a very busy kind of, I suppose, profession we work in, where everything's kind of like reactive. Booking that time out on a bi-weekly basis for 30 minutes, laser focus, 30 minutes, you reflect, and then some cool research. Sorry, you get me excited, but 2 pieces of research I love about this. I can't remember his name, but leaders who take a coach approach to their leadership improve their self-efficacy. And they do this through elements of empathetic listening. So they're listening to people. If they listen to people, they get a better understanding of what's going on. Then they can respond more effectively. If you respond more effectively, obviously your belief in your ability to meet the challenges faced of you becomes like a buffer for all the external stressors. And then the second thing, which I see all the time, and another piece of research I read recently was obviously people who have regular coaching have increased psychological well-being. Like you can see it because coaching at its purest form is person-centered. And it is holistic, you know what I mean? So like you are like a lot of the leaders I speak to, it's not actually the leadership capacity, it's how they manage themselves and where they spend their time. And mostly like what I'm seeing, there's a theme here. It's not who they want to become. It's actually finding a way to reconnect with who they once were. So that kind of like childlike play piece, that creative expression where the world seems to move up and seems to take away from you because you've got like, I've got roles at home, I've got roles in work. And then they're like, man, I haven't played the guitar for ages. It's like, I love playing the guitar. Like that's one of my clients the other day. I was like, so when are you going to play the guitar? He's like, oh yeah. Or for another one, beautiful moment a few weeks ago, Sorry, Alex, you got me. And it is in the reflective piece. Again, trying to find out, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I was like, what do you love? And he just stopped and he went, the water, man. I'm a surfer and I can't surf in Dubai. I was like, what can you do? Man, I love paddling. You want to see his whole body. It's just like he envisioned everything. And it was just like, well, what are you going to do? Oh, I'll go paddling this weekend. Easy. Okay, I'll see you on Monday. Will you tell me how it goes? And he goes, yeah. But the whole process of giving him that time to really find out what he loves, and this is what the reflective coaching is now you have a person who's centered with themselves, finding meaning and purpose and aligning that to the activities. Think what he's like now in the classroom.
Yeah.
Think what he's like at home with his family. Like, you know what I mean? And this is what really excites me. That, and I think this is, go back to but this is the real psychology piece and the coaching all coming together. That real whole person-centered element. So to kind of go back, that's what reflective inquiry brings you. But I suppose you caught me in a reflective piece as well there.
No, it's all good. I'm really thankful for you sharing that with us. It makes me think about obviously how I am, especially in juggling a lot of hats. And I always get asked the question a lot. It's like, how do you find the time? How do you make the time? How do you? And I get it wrong numerous times. Educators get it wrong. Especially when you've got a family and then you've got other things that you want to do. And it's easy to use that word sacrifice something. So, I grew up, I'm probably very similar to you in that all my friends, even for the last however many years, and I've been teaching for almost 20, still go, are you a PE teacher? Because I played rugby and I went to Loughborough. And it's no, I actually have a degree in human biology. And they're like, I just thought, it's like, no. But rugby was a big part of who I identify as. And unfortunately got injured a lot up to the age of 26. I had to retire, but I still identified as someone who was athletic and fit and went to the gym and trained. And that is harder and harder to maintain as you get older and older, but it becomes really, really important. So that identity and doing the things that you want to identify and identify as and making the time for it. Yeah, I get that a lot. And I think most educators get asked that. And we are very, very guilty of just sacrificing things off, aren't we? To go, well, I need to get this done. I've got to plan this lesson. I've got to mark this. I've got to write these reports. So the balance, I think that was a great piece of advice I got given from someone I interviewed previously, was about maintaining your energy levels consistently throughout that year. And a lot of teachers I've spoke with, I don't know if you found this the same, getting to the end of this term now, and they're like, how you doing? And they're just like, I'm dead. I just need to. And weirdly, I've got to the end of this term, I'm like, I feel okay. I feel pretty normal, just because I've worked to try and just maintain a constant energy level of, I get up at the same time, I go to bed at the same time, I don't get overly excited, it's just a steady stream, a steady flow of organization. We'll see. We've got another 2 terms to go, but we will see how that goes. But
what are some of the things that give you energy, Alex?
For me, this podcasting is definitely one of them. Like being able to speak to other educators and learn from other educators, definitely one. Spending time with my kids, being in the gym, being outside, and also, funnily enough, weird is being in the classroom. Like, I think this term, I don't know if you've probably found the same, again, stepping up into leadership roles as well. The amount of admin, which is answering emails, is just 10x'd. So weirdly, finding blocking time to do those things and only doing them at that time, I think my stress levels and therefore my ability to focus on certain things has got better. And it's just a learning journey. It's all the time that learning journey about what works, what doesn't work, where am I putting my time and effort. And as I say, it's a learning curve with all these things. It's a learning curve. Anyway, stop coaching me.
You gave me so much.
I know that. I knew that straight away. I don't mind. I want to flip on its head, and I'm sorry if this brings you as a downward one, by the way, but I want to ask, because it must be a challenge when you are coaching leaders or principals who are above you. There's going to be times when I imagine it uncovers some uncomfortable truths and things that, they may start to question and go, geez, do I want to be sharing this with, someone who is that, like, how do you overcome that and build, I'm going to use that word and you're probably going to mention it, but how do you go about building that trust? This episode is brought to you by Podbox, your all-in-one podcasting solution designed for educators, professionals, and content creators here in the UAE. So if you are tired of renting expensive studios for the hour, Podbox, you can access professional-grade podcasting gear for a whole day right from the comfort of your school, your home, or your office. And Podbox is made for schools and educators, empowering students with creativity, storytelling, and real-world communication skills through podcasting. And now Podbox is offering free trials for educators in the UAE. You can see how easy it is to bring the magic of podcasting into your classroom and spark innovation amongst your students. You can visit our website in the description below and take the first step toward unboxing your podcast. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, I think there's a strategic piece here, is that within my coaching role, I have a confidentiality agreement written down that's shared with the leadership team. And I think, and that is, and within that is, the leadership team will know who I coach, when I coach, but not what I coach about. So that's just for me to kind of, show how many hours that I do and how many people I see every year. Because, and this is how it comes, every coaching conversation starts the same. Like, this is confidential. I've got my coaching hat on. We're in education. We know the things that, breach confidentiality. So that's pretty clear. And colleagues and leaders will go, okay, so this is confidential. And I'm like, yes. I can say anything to you. And I'm like, yeah. Yes, obviously, except for what we mentioned there. And then you can see them pause and then just go, and it's, and that's the key bit, because if you don't have trust and honesty in the conversation, no growth will happen, but this is also useful and not useful at times, is because I've worked with these people for a lot. I have previous relationships. But so it needs to be formalized. That's the key thing I've learned, is like, like we just had a conversation there and like, Rory, I just want to have a chat with you. Stop coaching me. Like, so I have to know, when I'm with, when I'm just having a conversation, like there's a time for conversation. Yeah. So when I formalize this, which means it's on both our calendars and it's called Coaching with Rory at this time, that's actually when people turn up ready. And then the beautiful thing is they have accountability. So whatever they say they're going to do within the 2 weeks, I'll walk past them and they'll look at me like, I know we're meeting tomorrow. I'll have it done. I'm like, I haven't even said anything. I haven't even said anything to you. Has that ever, honestly, it's never gone. I've never had anything shared with me that was uncomfortable. I've definitely had moments where people have really opened up and shared emotions, which, takes a while to be able to protect yourself. Really, that's the key thing, because you really want to have empathetic listening. Yeah, because they're sharing with you. They've given you that privilege to share that emotion, so you have to honor it. But it also, if I was to walk you through some of my days where it would be like, I teach a class, then I'd have a coaching session for 30 minutes, then I'd teach a class, and then I'd have coaching, what I mean? And what happens in the lessons. Now it's a little different because it's the first year I've never taught. So I don't teach anymore. So now I'm coaching, meeting with parents, coaching, meeting with students, coaching, meeting, all that sort of stuff. So for my day, and this is, you talk about balance and administrative work, there's two things that are regularly in my week. I'm not going to say every day, but as much as I can, is a coaching session and a learning walk, like lessons. Because like you mentioned, if I don't, my energy drops. Like the admin work kills me. But when I'm having a coaching conversation, at least I know in my day I've had some influence. You know what I mean? Yeah. If I've got into a lesson, I've observed, I've given a little bit of positive feedback to somebody, acknowledged. Teachers need acknowledgement. Oh my God. Oh my teachers, they just, like students, they need to be acknowledged. I'm not like hey, you're doing a good job. Like the definition in coaching is really nice about acknowledging, is really acknowledging the behavior and the influence that's had. And like when you do that with teachers, you see them just light up. Hey, I loved how you were able to create an interactive, collaborative lesson involving higher order questions. Like that is phenomenal. And they're like, you noticed that? And I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like that was intentional. Like I was like, I know he was intentional because I'm a teacher. I know, you know what I mean? And like that is the piece that like really gets into, I think I've kind of gone off the confidentiality piece, but with that relationship and being kind of really intentional and strategic with having it in your written down. So SLTs, the head of school, are all aware that they can't ask Rory anything about what was discussed in that coaching. And if they do, I just go, yeah, go and speak to Alex. And they're like, okay. And then everybody knows.
Yeah.
So everyone knows that I'm not going around talking to everyone about what I heard.
Yeah. Now, obviously within that, there's only one of you. And I imagine there's how many, close to, I imagine 100 maybe, members of staff you've got there at the school?
Well, we're over 250. We're a big school, yeah.
So,
K-12. But about 90 in the high school.
So, as I was saying, there's only one of you. And therefore, you being able to get around and see everyone, however much I imagine that's a wonderful dream, it's just not going to be possible. And obviously, like a lot of schools here in Dubai, I've noticed over the past few years, coaching and bringing coaches in and training teachers up to be coaches is growing and growing more. Like, what strategies are you implementing then to make coaching part of the school's DNA? Yeah.
And I think we're coming to the end of the third year of this intentional, and it's really got me reflecting. And that's a question I'm really thinking about now. So I'll go to the highlights. The highlights I have, which was my vision, was to have more coaches in the school. That was always the idea. I was like, imagine in 3 years, I could create a coaching culture. I could actually provide a 2-day coach training program, like a rigorous one, which will kind of spark that interest in a few of my colleagues. And then what we have is we have 5 individuals in our school now. We have the first year we ever had an instructional coach in Everett. That's happened. So that's in elementary school. We have an Arabic coach in middle school, and they're doing their instructional coach training. I have one of my colleagues has just finished her training with me in the same program I did. Now she needs to get her hours. So she's now needs 100 hours of coaching. So she's coaching her colleagues in the school. I have another colleague of mine and these are all people that did my 2-day training. He started doing his coaching and education program. So January, like again, I'm meeting with them, and the aim is that we're going to do peer coaching so they can practice their skills. But now I'm going to start getting them to coach our colleagues because they need their hours. And I know they've been trained. So then it's like, so that's the beautiful thing. How has this happened? So 5 years ago, I did what's known as the Coach U 2-day coaching clinic. And GEMS were providing this as a professional development. I went in and I just came back and I went, that's me. That is it. I was like, I can't believe this is not happening in schools. I was like, nobody's seeing it. I was like, so I was lucky that with relationships, I was able to build it up from the bottom up, really, of just practicing coaching, embedding coaching, peer coaching, and peer observations with a peer coaching model within our professional development program. So trying to engage our teachers to have these, pre-observation coach-like conversations, get into lessons and post some more, less judgmental, more kind of feedback-oriented, I suppose. And then there was a moment where my head of school looked at me, and I was a middle leader, head of grade, and I was doing these PD sessions for all the divisions. And she just said, and she goes, you're going to have to do your master's in education soon. And I just went, She goes, no, you need to be getting on now. You need to let go. You need to start going in leadership. And I kind of paused and I heard her, and I have the utmost respect for this woman, and she really helped me in everything. And I just went, nah. And she went, what? And he goes, I'm going to be a coach. Right. She's like, what? I was like, no, I'm going to take my money and I'm going to invest it in a coaching program. In 2 years, I'll be a certified coach. And we will have, and with this is, and then I shared the vision. This is what we're going to do at the school. And then she's like, if you can do that, you've got all my support. You know what I mean? But you're going to have to do it on your own time. Yeah. So I did it for like kind of a year officially on my own time. And then I reported back, and then she goes, right, this seems to be really, picking up a bit of steam here. We'll give you one lesson off. I was like, okay, perfect. I'll do that. And then the second year they went, hey, maybe you can have a stipend for this. And I was like, right, this is where we need to coach leaders now. all APs, like we need, and then we, like, this is strategic. We start coaching leaders, and then it was last year, I was like, right, I want to start training. We need all the leaders, top down, SLT, and we got all our SLT done. We're on our middle leaders now, and coaching enthusiasts, as I call them, those people that just email me, go, can I do your training, please? I really want to do your training. I'm like, no problem. Because they're the influencers. They're the one that will bring the skills into the classroom. And we will get up to 60 this year of our leaders, middle leaders, and teachers. And this isn't just like educational leaders. This would be director of IT, operations, admissions, athletics. So it's like the whole broad spectrum as a school. And then now that we have these individuals in leadership positions, they all have the awareness of when to take a coach approach to their leadership. And then you're noticing the ripple effect. So the teachers are having interactions with them going, like, what? That was really cool. What did you do there? Oh yeah, I just practiced on my coaching. What's coaching? Go and speak to Rory. And then the ripple effect happens. Also really helped me last year that we had a lot of internal promotions, and every one of those that got promoted to leader, middle and senior leaders all did the coaching program. So that was a real win for me. That wasn't planned, it just happened, but I made note of it and went to the boss and like, did you see all those people have been on my training? And he was like, I did notice that, Rory, yes. And so that's really that was what you call an internal coaching program.
Yeah.
And that success of having other people in the school who have decided to take, and that was what I did with psychology. All I wanted to do was expose psychology to as many people as possible, and try and create that spark. And if some of the people will step in and go, that's for me, and some won't, and that's fine. But you've had a little bit of influence,
I was going to say that the stepping people that are like, it's not for me. Like we see that even with PD, like general teaching, professional development, where you've got some teachers, and I think I'm closer to that side of the fence now. I've been doing it for a long time, but those ones who are a little bit older, always done it this way. How do you go about handling the resistance from those teachers, or even maybe the leaders who don't see the value in coaching?
Yeah, and this has been my journey. Like this is literally how it's been, and there's a few key elements here. Is that you got to use the relationships you have. So you have to be strategic. So I had relationships with people in leadership, and I just said, hey, I'm doing my coach training. I need my hours. Give me 30 minutes, please. That's all I'm asking for, just one. Because if it adds value, you'll come back. And that's the thing with coaching. Coaching is experiential, so you can't force it. People have to receive it to give it. So my goal at the start was to get enough of the people I had relationships just to give me 30 minutes. As like, I'll give Rory 30 minutes, like he's doing his math, that sort of thing. And then what happens is they kind of go, whoa, that was really useful for me. Can I do that again? And then I'm like, no, right, there you go. And then what happens is, I'm on my third year. Now it's like, the ripples out. The best thing I had happened to me this year, again, a bit more mature colleague of mine, she comes up to me and goes, Rory, can I have a word with you? I said, that coaching stuff you do? I went, yeah. That like peer coaching you always talk about? It's like, yeah, for students, yeah. And they went, it works, I was like, yeah, I know. And she goes, yeah, but I didn't think it would, like, and it was just, but again, exposure, consistent exposure. And I think you'll know when you do PD, you got to have that armor about you because this works. Yeah. And like, it's not like, so I've run PD kind of, I'm like, and then leader and I have to say stuff and I'm like, I know we got to do this and I can kind of see we have to, but when I'm coach and I'm like, guys, I'm just letting you know, once you start to experience this. So a lot of things we do in our PDs, we start PDs with just a very basic, we call it like listening to the who. So we have colleagues and you just go, me and Alex, right? Alex, you're going to be the speaker. Rory's going to be the listener. Rory's the listener. He's going to say nothing. Silence for 2 minutes. Alex, you got 2 minutes. Rory, you're going to have 1 minute to paraphrase back, not just what they said, but who Alex is. So really getting in. And if you see this on a Tuesday, when our PD hour is every Tuesday, and everyone's like, meeting their remote, you just feel the energy, just calm and connections, and everybody going, man, I haven't spoken to someone all day.
Yeah.
And then no one's listening to me. Like, no one's listening. So, and I've definitely had the beautiful thing. My principal in the high school just said this 2 weeks ago. She was just saying, yeah, but coaching hasn't been forced. And coaching is invitational. That's the key element of it, because people will turn to coaching when they're ready.
Definitely.
And what I've noticed, I'm meeting people like, mate, you could really do with some coaching from me. And then what happens is 6 months, a year and a half, Rory, can we have a chat? That's what it starts with. It's not formalized. And I've got a few of my colleagues that don't like the formalization of it, but they will consistently come to me for 15, 20 minutes, and I know they want Coach Rory now. And they won't say it. They won't say it, like, because that means they'd have to kind of own up a little bit that, like, yeah, that coaching stuff works. You know what I mean?
We focus there like a lot on teachers and the impact that coaching has on teachers. But obviously, I'm a big believer, and I think you're going to be in agreement with this, is that, you know, if we want to get the best out of our kids and the students in the school, actually developing the teachers is one of, if not probably the best way to do it. So obviously, one of the things that you've done recently, and I'm hoping to get this right, is academic coaching to unlock students' potential.
Yeah.
A bit of research there.
Yeah, well done.
What were the takeaways from that session then? Because obviously, you know, this is a big thing, the GEMS IB conference. It's now shifting to, you know, this is what the coaching does for the benefit of the students. Like, what was the takeaway from that? Yeah,
this is just to give a little bit of context to the vision of coaching. Like, there's a question I have, and I will answer this, just it helps build a context, is what is coaching in education? Yeah, and what you might have noticed, I've seen in the last year to 18 months, instructional coaching jobs coming up. So instructional coaching is like that key piece in education because it directly impacts student learning. You know, I mean, that's the key thing.
Just as a pause on that one.
Yeah.
What's the difference between then, when we talk about coaching, sort of normal coaching. How does that differ to instructional coaching? Yeah,
it differs because it's, you have a focus. The instructional coach has a focus, which is to improve the teaching strategies of the teacher to have a positive influence on student learning. The flip side of coaching, of me and your coaching, is you establish the focus. Now, the benefit of instructional coaching is the teacher can establish what are the most effective strategies. But if there's a gap in the knowledge, then the instructional coach can step in and go, actually, from my experience or what I've observed from other teachers, is this is actually a very effective strategy. Can we pair up and do some shared teaching approach? And that's kind of the key difference there, I would say, within it. And I've done a lot of instructional coaching. But the beautiful thing about instructional coaching, it is partnership based. Jim Knight's work, the impact cycle, that's like the piece you would follow in there. But the academic coaching, as I was saying, you have the 4 components, which is the leadership coaching, and making sure leaders have the coaching skills. You have the professional practice, which your coaching is embedded in your professional growth model and professional development. Students, and then you have your community and parents. Now, my missing piece for my jigsaw is the student piece. And when I've been doing it as a teacher for about 2 or 3 years, academic coaching. So what really that is that I'm using coaching tools to unlock student potential. And what you're noticing with teenagers in particular, but this works K-12, is I'm just shifting from telling to asking more. And if you think about a teenager, particularly, you know, we high fee paying schools, so the parents are telling them what they need to do. The teachers are telling them what they need to do. The counselors are telling them what they need to do. Their whole life is adults telling them what they need to do. Academic coaching, even the words on academics, because, you know, that's really what they're in school for. You know what I mean? So you have to meet their targets there. But what you notice in teenagers is a lot of their academic concerns, you know, is actually a lot of personal. And then you get into that personal, social, emotional piece. And like, for example, like academic coaching, the students are like, I love this one. And it's like, they're just waiting and go, so what do you want to focus on today? What do you want to talk about? You tell me. It's like, no, this is your time. And you know what I mean? And we're using maybe the wheel of life, or what I call the wheel of priorities. Because just like, identify what's most important for you right now, rate it from 0 to 10. And then one of the students like, I can't, like, I'm an IB student, I've got all these deadlines, I'm having problems with my mum, I haven't seen my friends in 4 weeks because I'm studying all the time, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, right. And then I shifted to go, like, you know, what's important for this week only? And they just go, what do you mean? I go, what's important academically for this week? And they just go, this and this. I go, so 2 things after you've mentioned like 10, like 2 things, like, okay, what's important personally for you this week? I actually need to have lunch with my mum and I want to go to the cinema with my friend. Okay, how are you going to manage to complete all your work and do those things? They're like, oh, it's easy, I'll just do that. And then you just see them get a self-awareness going, now I own my own behavior, my own learning. And so when I pitch this is to embed this in a school is quite challenging. Like I could go into like drop-in sessions and do this all the time, but it's not embedded. So the vision is we have a student leadership program in our school, which did their first bit of leadership training during our parent-teacher conference. We had students come in for 4 hours. So my starting point is the next one in April it's the extended leadership program is like developing the skills of leaders for the future is kind of what we're looking at. So developing the students' coaching skills and then looking at embedding it within our IB core program is like, which is your, I don't know if you're familiar with the IB, but you have your CAS. Yeah. We've looked at how do we embed this in our CAS, because CAS needs to be based on a kind of a real life problem in a way, some of their projects. And what we're noticing, I'm not sure if you're seeing, is a huge increase in academic anxiety with our students. And from my experience of academic coaching with teenagers and students, like it reduces their academic anxiety and increases their resilience and ownership of the learning, which means less anxiety because you have control. So it is hard. I haven't done it yet, but for what is coaching and education, I'm quite close. At the end of this year, I'll have that piece in place, setting it up to be embedded within the curriculum. And then the parents. So that's the key one. I do a lot of coffee mornings for parents about adopting a coach approach to their parenting of teenagers. And then the feedback is just phenomenal. They're like, so this will actually improve the communication I have with my daughter and son. They'll actually speak to me. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, they will.
And it's like it happens all the time. So so that academic coaching, the key objectives is the purpose was to kind of expose and familiarize teachers to basic coaching tools that they could use in their learning. Like, for example, the Wheel of Life is a cool tool. I use it for the Wheel of Revision. Yeah. And just like, well, how much do you know on this topic? 8 out of 10. 4. Okay, so that's where you're going to revise then for your mock exams? They're like, yeah. So even just those basic skills and self-management strategies. But the key one is, as I said, coaching is experiential. So in these sessions, it's always experiential learning. So getting the teachers to have coach-like conversations, and to practice it. And it was really something strange happened that when a colleague of mine, you could see he was carrying a lot of emotion. So I just asked him, like I did, but he had to leave the classroom. He's like, and he was like, no one's asked me that question. And I'm sorry that I responded that way. And he came and found me. We had lunch together. He was like, no one's asked me that question for like 6 months. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, but I felt like it needed to be asked. He goes, it did need to be asked, but probably not in that context. And you know what I mean? I was like, I didn't know. But what I loved is he actually came to find me. You know what I mean? He was like, wow, you saw something there. And then if you think about that, you saw something there. Think about the students. Yeah. Like a teacher actually seeing something there and asking.
It's funny you mentioned that. Like I can't think what it was. One of the head teachers lead conferences in London a couple of weeks back, I think it was. And our principal from our school went and came back, and he said one of the surveys that was done, and I can't remember the guy's name who did it, but some high up and like real influential and does some fantastic work, data work, especially within education, with asking the parents in terms of what is one of the most important things for you, in terms of the schools that you put your children into. And one of the feedback parts is that the teachers know their child, and it's one of those things where, and I think every teacher can relate to this, especially if you've got a lesson and a follow-up lesson and a follow-up lesson. If you teach back-to-back lessons, getting to know those students and actually see them and make time to be, to take almost a step back and have a broader perspective view on, right, just having a look around, how are they doing, and being mindful of that. It's something we don't necessarily embed into, our teaching practice or our lesson planning or, any of those things. And yet, as you mentioned, social emotional well-being, I think even over the past 5 years, there's been a much bigger push on awareness of mental health and student social emotional well-being. And it kind of leads me into the next question, because obviously going into 2025, we're thinking about the future of education. And within that, there is technology. And it's an interesting one from my side as someone who is kind of very interested in AI, very interested in technology, and has these conversations with numerous people around the world. And one of the things that comes up frequently is, do we not, should we not start to utilize technology or AI to help try and monitor or utilize it for whether it's a coaching capacity, whether it's a mindfulness capacity, or any of those things. But I'm interested in it from your take in terms of where you foresee some of the biggest challenges and opportunities for these things in the coming years.
Yeah, I think the one challenge I really noticed, particularly from COVID, and then the real focus on the integration of technology, is the biggest challenge I see is disconnection. That's the key one. And I start my first slide on my 2-day coaching clinic that I share is this goes, the more high technology around us, the more need for human touch. So to become more high touch in a high tech world. And this is where I want to kind of, embrace the AI integrated technology, but also touch and connection. And like coaching to connection, I would say, is like teaching to learning. Like it's like, if you want to connect with yourself and you want to learn how to connect with others, coaching for me, from everything I've read and experienced, that is it. And I think that's why I've experienced it, like coaching and education is shifting in the UAE. I've noticed it over 18 months. I've seen people come to Dubai, reach out to me and like, I'm going to bring my business here.
Yeah.
How do I have these meetings? Like it's coming, because people, a lot of them still don't understand what it should, like what I would perceive it to look like. But the challenge is disconnect, and I can see it. I've got a 15-year-old myself, in my school, and I'm my whole life is working with teenagers, and it is a challenge to see how disconnected they are from themselves. That's the key one. We all say like they don't hang out together, but they do. They just they hang out with a medium of technology. Like that's we would have done with our 64s and GoldenEye. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, but so what I see that was always for me, and I got a bit frustrated, I'll be honest, for myself after COVID. Like our school really equipped us to be able to do blended learning, online learning. You couldn't ask for any more. Like it was unbelievable. Like the technology they brought in with the cameras, the speakers, the blended approach. It was phenomenal. And we were lucky. And then everyone came back and it was like, right, that's the future. And I was like, guys, have you not understood that we're looking at a disconnection here? And this is what really, I'll be honest, really pushes me, is like, I've experienced, I read a lot, coaching and connection. Coaching is connection, and I think that's where the opportunity is like, again, go back to reflective inquiry. How many of our students sit and reflect and pause? Honestly, pausing is by far one of the most effective skills I've ever learned.
I'd be on board. 30 seconds in, I'm bored. I'm bored now. It's funny you mention this though, because doing the rounds on my social media at the moment, how bad's this? I'm talking about disconnecting while talking about social media, but is a study, and it's a video of when a school basically stops the use of mobile phones. I think it was like 21 days or something.
Yeah.
And it's the research, it's the part that goes with it. And obviously here in Dubai, I don't know if you've seen the work that Jess are doing with that. And the evidence there for it in terms of just removing the mobile phones from school But this school went a step further. I think they removed the students' use of mobile phones fully. So they put them into this massive Perspex box, didn't take them home with them, just off them completely. It's insightful, really insightful in terms of the impact it has about building connections, going out and playing, talking to somebody. And it's interesting, there was someone I spoke to recently about this as well, in terms of, we talk about the future of education. What's one of the oracy? Mm-hmm. Really interesting in terms of being able to communicate and verbalize and talk something through. Actually is one of the things they're looking at as a big shift in 2025. And so it's kind of almost, you get teachers, this is what you'll get. This is why you've got these 55-year-old teachers out there going, why should I change? It's all coming full circle type of thing. But it's kind of true with that, isn't it? It's a challenging one.
Well, reading. A lot of my colleagues in the IB have just gone back to textbooks.
Yeah.
And like there's a great, in Adam Grant's book, I can't remember which one it is, but he's talking about Finland and the PISA scores and how Estonia overtook them. And it was actually linked into the use of technology and the negative impact on reading. And like the loads of schools, UK, US, Australia, New Zealand, they even put them in those slips like you get in the Etihad Arena, you know, those ones.
Yeah, with the pins that go in, so you can't.
Yeah, because I spent the summer reading John Hattie's The Great Rewiring of the Childhood Brain, Anxious Generation, and like I came back in full gun ho, banning phones.
Yeah.
And then just the actual how to do that, you know, and how do you share the reason behind it with parents and students and everything, you know, trying to, you know, reduce it in classrooms and things like that. It's a real challenge.
Yeah.
It is a real challenge.
And I'll give you an example of today. So I've got an email I need to respond to, and it's got some questions in. And what I'd done earlier is I took those questions and I just copied them with a bit of the information into ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. And I said, we're going to come back to these in a bit. Don't do anything with it now. And he went, okay. So we go into the phone, driving from the Springs to Mall of the Emirates, 15 minutes, 17 minutes. And because I pay for AI, I've got the voice. So it's hooked up to the Bluetooth in my car, turn it on and have a conversation. So I'm going to verbalize these answers. We're going to help construct and do. And that's through my phone. And so had a great conversation. I've got now these answers that I've voiced written out for me, because I generally think I'm a better speaker than I am a writer. So that was a massive help. However, it's all through my phone. Mm-hmm. And on one side, hopefully that's a story people go, that's a really effective use of what you're utilizing your strength. But at the same time, if you remove that from me or on the other side of it, I could be like, oh yeah, but I also, as my wife tells me this quite frequently, probably spend far too much time on LinkedIn or far too much time posting videos or those types of things. It's a fine balance that we as adults still need to model. And that's the biggest challenge, because if you ask any educator and go, so screen time, how much screen time, phone devices do you spend? I'd be like 8 hours a day. Mm-hmm. How are we meant to model effective use of this to students, to our kids, if in our job we are so heavily reliant on this technology and that's then all they see? I don't have the answers for it. I don't expect you. It's just a point I'm making with this. It's what did someone refer to it as? In design thinking, it's a wicked problem. There we go. A wicked problem. And it is. And I'm sure we'll have more conversations moving forward in the years to come with it as well.
Yeah, and it's easy to go, just remove it, but it's not the way it's going. And that's why the challenge and the opportunity is that's here and it's going to stay and it's going to be there. What I want to do is I just want to be able to, if I look at my daughter in particular, she said this to me the other day, it was beautiful. She goes, Dad, I'm really getting good at listening.
Yeah.
And I was like, good, because it's probably one of the best things you can have. You know what I mean? And just that's me always at her. Always did you ask a question? Did you listen? She's like, Dad, leave me alone.
I bet yours are probably the same as mine. My wife does this as well. She can just, when they just know. My daughter's getting old enough now just to know. Yeah. She's like, either you're being a teacher, Dad, or you're coaching, you're doing that. And my wife's like, gives you that look, and she's like, don't do that to me. Don't ask me that. I hate that. But we're starting to wrap this up. And what we've got for this one here is a bit of a quick fire round for you. And this is titled Get to Know Rory. Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to see that you've done a little bit of preparation for this, Rory. So thank you ever so much. A book or a resource on leadership or coaching that you would recommend to everyone?
I'll categorize them. The one book for coaching, which I recommend to all people who want to get into coaching, is called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungary Stanley. It's the 7 effective questions, but it's just so, like PD, it's relevant. You can use it now, and you're actually tapping into what you can bring. So I think that's a great book. I'm a Ted Lasso fan, so like I got all my merch. So my daughter buys that. I think there's nuggets of gold in there, a bit lighter.
Be curious.
Books.
There you
Sorry?
go. Be curious.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Whitmore quote, my daughter had painted that for me on a canvas for Christmas last year. So I have that up in my office and stuff. So 2 books, I think, probably had the greatest impact on my leadership journey. Most recent is called The Pause Principle. Step back to lead forward. That's I was in a coaching conversation 2 or 3 years ago, and nothing beautiful as a coach than landing that coaching, that like deep coaching question. But when you're receiving coaching, and he pierced me, he just went, "When was the last time you paused?" And I just went, no. I meditate. And I was like, no. It's all strategic pauses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I go for my apple. You know what I mean? Like I have a cup of tea. I do my breathing. I go to the box. And but he's like, but when do you really pause? And when I read that book, I was like, man, so really pausing for myself. That means I'm more present for others. But the one thing I come back to, I read this and it's over 12 years ago, and it changed everything for me, is that Mindfulness, Finding Peace in a Frantic World by Mark Williams and David Penniman, I think. And that's an actual mindful-based stress reduction program in the book. And that, it's the practice I just go back to all the time, like consistently. My breathing, my awareness of my emotions and my thoughts. And what happens is, and I think this is key to education, in particular as a teacher, like you got to be your best self every minute in that classroom, because you want them to come in knowing they're safe, they're cared for. I'm not bringing any of my stuff into the room, and I'm responding, not reacting. I'm responding to the needs of my students. So for me now, I'm responding to the needs of my staff. I'm responding to the needs of my parents. But I know, like exercise, I can do 2-3 days max without exercise. That's really pushing it.
Yeah.
The meditation piece, I can do 5-7 days, and I start going, oh, there's something, like I can feel. I'm like, oh, that, and then I'm like, no, I haven't done my breathing. And even with that, it's reflective writing or a bit of coloring with my son, which I just did today. So it's the one practice that just made my life better. Just to be simple, it just made my life better.
Four for the price of one there. So thank you ever so much for that.
Right, you had coaching, you had leadership.
What's the most valuable leadership lesson you've ever learned?
I think in the last few months, because experiential learning is everything to me, and it's like leadership and growth. It's about me. Yeah. And what I mean by that is like I love this, is like you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And what I mean by that is I have to be, and I think when I'm coaching leaders, this is a theme, is be intentional with the amount of investment I give my own well-being. And I think that's key. You were talking about earlier, like how do you manage your energy? What are your energy zappers? What are your energy givers? And making sure like you are thinking about your day and your week, and you're looking at, right. And I think that's it, because, the job in leadership and education, it will take you. It will lead you. That's 100% I can see.
Radiators and drains, as Sir Clive Woodward wrote, I believe. Taking on to the next one then. So if you weren't in education or coaching, what career would you have pursued? Yeah,
I'd be a football coach, I'd say. Like I do look back, I was football mad, semi-pro all the way. But like I said, being a PE teacher, I just there was only psychology, but I like teaching and learning and growing people and connections is like everything. And like to say I'd be a football coach, what do I mean by that? I'd earn a living by it, because I am a football coach. This is the first year I haven't coached my poor daughters from 6 She's 15, so she's now 14. She doesn't have a coach. My son is getting coached in basketball and boxing and everything out there. So it's like, it's kind of in me, but I'd pursue it as a career.
Amazing. And lastly then, what's one thing that always inspires you to keep going even on the tough days?
Yeah, like I think there's what I call my learning experiences, but they're actually those strategies, those regular strategies I have to optimize my performance, and what we call like your habits, like my habits. And I think my learning experiences, like Adam Grant, I love Adam Grant, like that hidden potential. It's not like the peak you climb, it's the journey you've got there. So like for me, I have this phrase like, and I'm in the gym or like talk about the rowing machine. If you want to quit anything, like go on the rowing machine. I think that's when ain't nothing going to shake me. That's kind of what I say to myself sometimes.
Amazing. So Rory, you have shared a lot of powerful insights today. And if there's one key takeaway that you'd like the listeners, whether they're educators, leaders, aspiring coaches, to remember, what would it be?
It's the theme is simple. Get a coach. And I don't mean that in a self-promotion way. I mean actually, like, if you want to grow personally and professionally, meaning you have greater influence on the people around you, you got to have someone to bring that out. But what you're not doing is you're actually committing time to yourself. That's what you're doing. You're saying, I am worth this time for me to reflect and grow. And just by that commitment, you'll grow anyway, even if it's not like it's like that process. So like, get a coach, but I would actually maybe shift it, is commit time to your own professional growth, I would say.
Amazing. And for those people who maybe are interested and have listened to you today and watched and want to connect with you or learn more about the Corelander Coaching, see your work in action, where can they find you?
Yeah, mostly on LinkedIn. That's where I have everything. And my email, corelandercoaching@gmail.com.
Great name. I love that name, by the way. It just kind of rolls off, Corelander Coaching. It's like it was meant to be, as they say. It was meant to be.
Yeah, and they changed like the spelling, so it's like the core values. That's the piece.
Smart. Very smart. Well, Rory, thank you ever so much for joining us today and just sharing that incredible journey and your knowledge with us. And it's exciting. Obviously, you're in a kind of, we say the start of that journey, but it's recognized leadership. It's something you've obviously always been doing. And throughout your efforts there, it's clear for everyone to see and to listen to today, the true impact it's had on unlocking potential across teachers, across leaders, and across students. And very, very excited to see what 2025 brings for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was fun.